This is a great time to bring on Dallas Braden. We know A's legend, what he did in his career, what he's doing now with the Oakland Athletics on NBC Sports California. But I want to take him back, and I think why it's so important to have you on today is because you remember what it was like what these guys are going through. You even mentioned it the other day about we all remember that horrific end of the Bob Guerin era in Baltimore. Bob Melvin shows up in Chicago. He's like looking at the back of guys' jerseys on the flight home. He's told the story. He was looking at the media guide to figure out. You remember what it was like, what these guys are going through, but this is the process. And I keep talking about how these series like we're having now are great for the young players to learn.
And there's no better way to learn if you're a young player and you have the opportunity than trial by fire, because you know you're going to get an opportunity tomorrow, or at least you'd like to think so, right? And if you're in that mix, what you do is you use those teams across the diamond as the measuring stick, a barometer of sorts of where you're at, you know, individually, and you might go across the diamond. If I'm a second baseman, what does the guy at second base look like? What does his game look like? How do I match up against that? Where does he match up in the pantheon of second basemen in baseball, and how do I stack up? What do his at-bats look like? Where's he at defensively? Is he a guy that's got a high baseball IQ? And you start to take stock of where your game is at, where you'd like it to be, again, by taking a look across the other diamond. But now you're learning how to compete against guys that are doing it at the highest level. How do you win those matchups? You know, I was just talking to Rick Riz's great radio guy for the Seattle Mariners, and we were talking about guys getting comfortable and what that looks like. And there's a lot of failure that has to occur, I think, whether it's internally or outwardly. You see it with numbers where guys start to realize they're going to have to make those adjustments. You're going to have to play the game a little differently. And having these competitive series to compete in are a great way to identify what it is you think you're doing well that you might not actually be doing well, and maybe some things that you are doing well. But when you're playing elite competition and you're playing against a team like the Seattle Mariners, who are where they're at right now in their season and hopefully October bound, they're playing each and every game, and they're taking each and every pitch and each and every at-bat like it's Game 7 implications. And I think it should be that way because of what they want to achieve, but no better environment to learn in for a young player than that right there.
You know, a story that I bring up all the time is back when I was covering the Warriors. It was at the end of Kobe Bryant's career. And when he came out to shoot before the game, it was like 40 minutes. And he worked. I mean, he had the lather going. He took every possible shot he possibly could take, knowing that also he probably lifted at 5 a.m. in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking for like Warrior players to look at that as an all-time great going, he's at the end of the career. He could go out there, shoot it. He worked and worked and worked. So talk also about what you did. It just wasn't watching guys during the game, right? It was watching BP. It was watching like all these different things.
Well, I just, you know, it's wow, Tony, that's incredible that you asked that, because I just had a great conversation with Perry Hill, defensive wizard, infield guru, coach for the Seattle Mariners. And he came up to me and said, "Hey, Mr. Braden, I just wanted to take the time to officially introduce myself. We've squared up against each other across the diamond for many years." He said, "I love everything about you. I love the game when you were on the mound. You know, that mentality." He said, "I love what you got going in the broadcast booth now. You know, just it's great to meet you." And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, this is I know who Perry Hill is. I don't know if you do. Like, I know who Perry. If you don't know who Perry, you need to look it up. Check out you need to look it up, because the dude is an absolute gem. So when those conversations are had with individuals like that, that's where you're kind of reminded of where you've come from, what you've done. And for him to say that, it warmed my heart, because I was the guy who, on the last day of the season, you're still getting the lift in. On the last day of the season, you're still playing catch. Why? Because I'm here at the ballpark. This is what I'm supposed to do. And when you watch, look, I mean, I'll go no further than Stephen Vogt. I took a video of Stephen Vogt last year.
Yeah.
The last day of the season.
Career over.
The last day of the season. He's retiring. He knows he's retiring. You and I knew he was retiring.
Yeah.
Everybody knew that Stephen Vogt was never going to play another game of competitive baseball in his life. And what was Stephen Vogt doing before the game on the last day he would ever put a pair of baseball spikes on?
Blocking baseballs.
He's not going in the game, Townie. Voter, you're not going to grab a bat, bud. What are you doing? Tuck it in. It's been a good run. Y'all tuck it in right after I wear 100 baseballs off my chest on the last day I'll ever step foot on the field as a competitor.
Can't teach it.
No.
And that's why I always marvel, and I like, as they talked about in this big article in the San Diego Union Tribune about the Padres, Kevin Acey wrote it, and about the Padres and Manny Machado, and they talked about at Dodger Stadium where it was an optional thing. None of the starters were out there. Padres' time was up, and then the Dodgers came out, and all the Dodgers players were out there for an optional. Makes me think of something that's not optional, and that's being a Tampa Bay Ray. We only get to see him once a year, but every single time, every single day, it doesn't matter, night game, day game, they take infield. Mm-hmm. They work on their fundamentals every single game, 162 games. It doesn't matter how late it was the night before. They do it. I've asked. They do it every single game. It's who they are. And it's like, that's like, I think about young players watching this, like Jordan Diaz. We talked to Eric Martins. I want to see you down here every single day. I want to see the young guys down here working hard. And then watch what everybody else is doing. Watch how the best players conduct their business.
How do you not? And that was always something that I wanted to do. You know, I'm not saying that I was watching other guys throw bullpens before it was cool, but that's just something that you did. You just watched somebody work, because where else are you going to pick up this kind of education? Where else are you going to watch somebody throw a major league bullpen? You're not going to go home and watch that. You're in the big leagues. Take your ass down there and watch a big league bullpen. It's that simple. Watch a round of BP in the cage of a guy who has a feel for what he's doing, a guy that you like his approach. These are all things that are street legal, highly, highly encouraged. So, you know, back to your point about what do you do on the last day? What do you do when the season's winding down? How do you handle it? You set yourself up and you put yourself on a trajectory to go into the off season to continue to be able to put the work in that you've put in all season long. You have to continue to raise your baseline, right? Talking about the Mamba, continue to raise the baseline. If it's 10 gassers at the very end of his workouts, well, tomorrow it's going to be 12. Why? Because that's 2 more than 10. Do the math. I'm just going to do more. Just going to get better. That has to be the mentality.
I have a list in my hand, and it's a list you're on.
Uh-oh.
It is left-handers to get 30 starts in a season.
It's not a felonious. Right.
No, it doesn't have everything from Stockton that you did. That list is – we've kind of covered that list up, by the way, here on Nate's Cast. Means something, man. That means something, and you know what? If you want to call me Old Man River, I'll stay on that river and fly fish all day, because I keep talking about 4,374 outs. That's how many outs you got to get, not counting extra innings. That's how many you got to get in a season. And, you know, we don't have enough guys to throw innings and get enough outs. I'm so happy for JP Sears. It's a list that's got you, Vida Blue, Ken Holtzman, Mark Mulder, Kenny Rogers, Barry Zito, on and on. Your guy, Gio Gonzalez. It means something. 30 starts. And hopefully someday he's 30 starts, 200 innings. Just talk about how proud you are of him, because in August, I had a bunch of people like my partner here, shut it down, he's struggling. I'm like, no, you got to battle through this. And he battled through August. He's been great in September. How proud are you of JP Sears?
Extremely proud. Listen up, Commander. Put the cans on. That right there is a wonderful look into a guy taking advantage of the opportunity set in front of him and then earning the opportunity each and every time he took the baseball. Just getting 1% better each and every day. He identified some of the shortcomings, right? We got to figure out how to get the changeup in the mix just a little more. I can have success with it. How do we do that? Well, he wasn't afraid to challenge himself. And again, learning at the big league level, not easy to do, not at all. And a lot of times for position players, we talk about the best availability, or the best ability is availability. Can you be depended on? Can the skipper pencil you in every day? That goes a long way. it goes a long way on the mound as well. Whether you're coming out of the bullpen or starter in the rotation every 5th day, can the team count on you to get a body of work that is dependable every time you take the mound? And I don't think without a doubt there were questions about that in spots 1 through 5 at the beginning of the season. And JP Sears was a part of that. But he continued to grow and he continued to battle and he continued to go back to the drawing board and get better each and every outing. And because he's been able to stay healthy and he's been able to stay competitive, he now finds himself at the end of his season ready to post up 30 plus times, which is an achievement all its own, especially in a day and age where you said something, Townie, 30 plus starts, 200 innings, and 200 innings is attainable. Still, it's not the unicorn that I think at times we make it out to be, but there is a certain level of efficiency that the game has told you you are now going to have to execute if you're going to be a 200 inning guy. And so it's not just going out there and being a horse and taking your lumps through 7 or 8 innings where you've given up 6 or 7 runs, but you can just take that one on the chin for the club. You now have to be able to put together 6, 7, or 8 sparkling innings consistently to get that deep into these outings. And I think JP Sears has started to reveal himself as somebody who, if he can continue to make those adjustments and continue to take the ball consistently the way he has, there's no reason that the growth he's shown now isn't something that you can't continue to depend on.
How important was it for you to prepare mentally before a season for you to finally be able to get to 30 starts? I understand the physical part, but I think there's got to be a huge mental component for you to strive for it, believe that you can actually attain that.
Well, I went from my first year in pro ball to just thinking about the things that I wanted to achieve to then understanding the power of manifestation, the understanding of putting my desires into the universe tangibly, writing these things down. So holding myself accountable and, again, taking a piece out of the Mamba playbook, signing that contract with yourself that you cannot deter from. You cannot afford to not show up today because that contract will now be null and void. So you have to show up each and every day. And when that happens mentally, the physical preparation is almost an involuntary contraction. You know you have to do that, right? You're going to wake up, you're going to breathe, you're going to blink, whether you like it or not. Those are things that are going to happen. So to a mental preparation standpoint, if you are prepared mentally to handle that, everything else that comes along with physically preparing for the road is going to take care of itself.
David Force comes to you and says, Dallas Braden, I need help. What should our game plan be for Mason Miller? Is it starter? Can't keep him healthy, scared with that? Reliever? How would you do it?
Well, I think what Mason Miller ultimately projects as is a frontline starter. I don't think there's any question when you think about his stuff and what we've seen here in the starting capacity and what we've seen in short bursts that could, I think, replicate or emulate what a relieving role could potentially look like. And I think early, you always want to give a guy an opportunity to be able to show that he can provide bulk for you, because physically looking at Mason Miller, he's an individual, when you put him through the eyeball test, tells you he can handle the workload. And the idea of only being able to add on to that, I think, gets you excited. Well, now you obviously, you have the blemish, the injury, and that's something that's going to have to be paid attention to, something that's going to have to absolutely be game planned for and around at times. But I think early you have to give him the opportunity to show that he either can figure out how to build on this foundation and turn himself into that frontline starter that he projects as, or you give him and his body the opportunity to tell you that they can't, and that we're going to have to figure out a different way to keep him healthy and keep him active. And maybe that is in shorter bursts. But I think there's still an opportunity for him to show you that he can be depended on every 5 days.
First impressions are huge. Joe Boyle.
Joe Boyle rules. I like the idea that Joe Boyle has a big fastball that it didn't appear that he was afraid to challenge guys with. And there were some misses that were very non-competitive at times, but I think that has a lot to do with it being your big league debut.
Oh, my God. Your heart's got to be going like –
I mean, goodness, right? So I can cut the guy some slack when you're saying, well, Dallas.
Curveball in the dirt. Come on,
well, yeah,
man.
you know what? I don't think I threw a ball anywhere near home plate the first 4 pitches I threw in my big league debut. So I get it. I know what the guy's going through. So that's why I say initial impression is You love the fact that he's got the big-time fastball, the 96, 98, 99. We saw 100 miles an hour tickle. So his willingness to challenge guys, because one thing that we all hear and we know at the minor league level is, look, they'll time a bullet up there at the big leagues. So you better put it where you want. Right down Main Street, not a good place to be. They'll ride you right out of the yard. So, again, just the willingness to say, here it is. I don't care if it's the big leagues. I don't care what the name on the back of your jersey says. Let me tell you about the name on the back of mine.
I always like to say this. If you're playing the Masters for the first time and you're teeing up on one and you don't hit it in the fairway, I understand.
I get it.
I understand. I'm playing at the Masters. Let's end on this. You went to a technical university in Texas.
The Texas Tech University.
And you got your guns going.
Bang, bang, bang.
You did hit there.
I did. I raked.
So when I think about you as an analyst, everybody thinks about pitching. I know you hit in college. But what is that like for you? It's easy for you to talk pitching. Mm-hmm. But now, as an analyst, you got to do the entire game. You got to think as the manager, the pitching coach, the hitting coach. You got to at times think about the front office. What is that like for you as an analyst when you really need to think like a hitter?
It's a ton of fun because that's the game in all its glory. Every aspect of it that you just outlined is what makes this game so beautiful, right? From the front office making decisions to put the guys in position that they're in to play the game that I'm analyzing, and then watching the players physically move about, putting themselves in position, sometimes compromising, sometimes completely illogical. I don't know how they're physically doing what they're doing out there. We've got some of the greatest athletes on the planet playing the game of baseball right now. So having the experience of having stepped in the box at the highest level until you get to the professional ranks, I know what that's like. I've stared down 99. I know what that feels like. So that's something that I'm able to kind of, I don't want to say lean on, but I can tap into, where some other guys, maybe they were done hitting in high school. They didn't have that. And something else I did, Townie, to your point about preparation, was I sat in a couple hitters meetings, right? Take the opportunity to talk to these guys during BP. I was out watching batting practice. So having conversations with the bench coach as a player and having conversations with the manager as a player, that was able to open my eyes to the nuance of the game at the big league level that has, again, afforded me the opportunity, I think, to speak intelligently and analyze intelligently the game that we're seeing. The trick to what's happening at the dish these days for hitters is the new approach to the art of hitting that we're seeing. The idea of lifting the baseball and intentionally trying to lift the baseball in ways that was never even really thought of, or I think people didn't entertain the idea that they were approaching the baseball that way. That's a whole new wave of hitting that has to be acknowledged, whether you like it or not. It's something that guys at the big league level are applying. There's a guy named Aaron Judge who's had a ton of his success.
He's all right.
Based on how a guru has showed him how to go about it. So to give you the long-winded answer, it's been a ton of fun because it's a great opportunity to talk about the game from every aspect.
All right, a lot of people are not going to talk about this. I just want to address this because it's probably the last time we're going to have you during the season. Being a street-smart kid like yourself, you in your life have always been able to overcome the obstacles. And what a lot of people don't know, you've been put in a very tough situation this year broadcasting. It's not like you've been doing this for 30 years. This has not been an easy year. We've thrown a lot at you and a lot of different things, and you have risen above the issues and the obstacles. I just want to tell you, I have noticed as someone that's watching every day and a part of this every day, you need to be commended. A lot of people aren't going to talk about this, but you need to be commended from a broadcasting standpoint, what you've done this year, because it's been very impressive. You have matured as a broadcaster this year, despite all the chaos that was around you.
Tony, I appreciate that a lot. I think it probably hasn't been the easiest for a lot of us here, understandably so. And I think everybody involved just showing up and being the professionals that they've been, I think have made it as easy as it can be for all of us, you included, the commander included. You're right, it hasn't been easy, but I think because we love the game of baseball and we're able to find solace here at the ballpark and kind of let everything else just drip away and we can enjoy the game for what it is, we're fortunate for that. So I appreciate that acknowledgement, but it's not without a lot of hard work that's done behind the scenes, again, to put us in positions to just kind of fade away and let the game kind of take us away for 3 hours. So I appreciate that, my friend.
Great stuff. Have a good call.
Thank you.